Computer. All right, perfect. So let's work through just the basics of it, right? And, obviously we all know what live transfer is. It's an incoming call from a third party company for clients that are looking for life insurance. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to buy, but they're looking for information and a point of contact to guide them through the process.
Correct.
So obviously you've been doing this for, I'd say what, 6+ months now, more?
Yeah, I think I went full time like October, September of last year.
Okay.
So been
So
working out the kinks for a while.
you were doing face to face for such a long time. What made you switch to live transfer? What was the reason?
Well, it was a limitation that we had at the time for leads in my specific area. So
Okay,
that was the challenge. It was becoming saturated, and I couldn't drive 4 hours
sure.
to get to leads. I would love to be able to, but
Right.
my home situation, my life, like outside of work, just didn't really lend itself to that. And we
Okay.
all know how that goes with your no-show ratio and all of that. You're just driving, and now in this current climate with the gas prices, it's crazy. So I made
Gotcha.
that shift, and I first I went hybrid. So I did like 2 days out, 2 days with live transfers, and it just made more sense to stick with live transfers because the time I was burning with dialing to book
Hmm.
appointments was time I was missing to accept calls. So it's like a
Gotcha.
push and pull. But
Makes sense.
the profits just kind of made the decision easier for me. I needed more time to take calls. That was
Right.
really what made that decision for me. And I haven't really turned back.
So I think one of the things that people don't understand that going live transfer, even though we all know as an organization, even as brokers, that it costs more to do live transfers, but face to face, there's also equivalent amount of financial impact because once you buy the lead, you book an appointment, you're driving, right? So your cost of mileage, your gas, your other expenses that are going to add up, and possibility of no show as well too, which equals to what you're going to pay for a live transfer, in my opinion. At least that's what I've calculated based on what I've seen,
Yeah.
right? Because I generally pay anywhere from, I'd say, 30 to about 45 to $55 for a face-to-face lead if it's a mailer,
Yeah.
for mortgage protection, and some even north of $60, right?
Yeah.
So you can book an appointment, you drive there, no show, you burn your gas, you're frustrated at this point. So all of that
You
can
lose
be
time.
exactly, and your time, which is the most valuable. All of that can be compressed by paying the same amount going through live transfers. And you can take a lot more call and see a lot more people and help a lot more client virtually, right? So
Correct.
that's a big difference, at least what I've seen, unless you think otherwise.
No, I agree. That's where I guess why it fits so much for me because time was my limit. I
Sure.
could work, I could take 6 hours of transfers and sit in one place
Right.
and reach, because right now I have 25 states. So that's a big
Gotcha.
pool of people that I essentially can pull from for that business. So that was opposed to maybe talking to 5 appointments
Right.
and cutting off my day by 2, 3 o'clock to be able to get back south where I needed to be at a certain time for my family. So time was compressed for me. So the same thing, $1,200, $1,500 a week on calling leads, running leads, doing the activity, door knocking, following up, all that stuff to get essentially the same results of basically talking to 5 to 10 people a week
Yeah.
and not really chasing them. I don't like saying chasing because it sounds kind of negative, but I don't have to run them as intensely. So,
Got
for
it.
example, I would say that life transfers is not easier. It is on the pricier side because you have that wallet system with most of
Right.
your vendors, but it's a lot of follow up too. Oh, I didn't know
Sure.
I had to pay for something today, or I was just trying to get a quote. I can't commit right now. Can you call me
Right.
in a week? Can you call me in 2 weeks? Which then goes into post dating, which with some
Makes sense.
carriers affects how you get paid.
Right.
So I wouldn't say it's easier. There's just different steps to have the success you're looking for. And just setting up a system that is constantly going to feed the machine, just like how you
Right.
do person appointments, you have to be able to reinvest in your business. This one's a little bit more methodical, I suppose, as far as planning out, because I try not to post date past 2 weeks, because if I
Right.
keep it within 2 weeks, I can keep buying calls. I can
Sure.
keep
Yeah, it
the
makes
system
sense.
running. If I go outside 30 days,
replenishing, right? Exactly.
it gets a little hairy. Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay,
when
good.
you
So
think about it that way, yeah.
makes sense. So let's talk about the basics, right? So the first step, what are the tools that a new agent will need to start live transfers?
100%, I would say FEX Toolkit. It's just a
Okay.
simple website. That's just FEX Toolkit, and we actually do have a coupon code for 15% off. So I think it comes out to like $30 a month. It's
Okay.
a quoting tool. It is not qualifying people. It's just a quoting tool, and it basically has all the carriers. So you
Got
put
it.
in the person's date of birth, state, and smoking status, and essentially the coverage amount that you're looking for, and you have all your carriers stacked. So for me, it cut out the which carrier am I going to go with? Because by the
Okay.
time you get to the point of actually doing a quote or a range for the pricing, you should already know the top two companies you're going to go with.
Got it.
Because you're
Okay.
going to go through the health. You're going to go through why are we doing this policy? What are you doing? Are you adding on? Are we doing final expense? Are we doing mortgage? You need to know all of that information. And I tell all my calls that I'm like, I'm just asking so I can start looking at the companies for you. I got 15 to pick from. We got to get it down to the top two choices for you so we know which one we like.
Okay. Gotcha.
So it's just a matter of making and being clear with people so they understand it's a process. Because it has
Makes
happened.
sense.
I just want life insurance. I just want a quote. Just give me a quote. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if you're a smoker. I don't even know how old you are. Like, let's talk about it. What kind of insurance?
Right.
Sometimes you spend 5 minutes explaining term versus whole life.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you do that in the house too. You have to educate people. So
So
that's
FEX toolkit is probably one of the most important. What else?
Definitely having your worksheet in front of you. This is also on our Google Drive. This is going to be filled out. But it's just having like all of their basic information and writing down your notes. They're never going to see this. So you can write as many notes as you want on there.
Okay.
Hey, Chris. Hi, Chris. There's plenty of ways that I use that little worksheet to make sure that I'm going, because I formatted it to match the flow of the application. So, if you get stuck because you forgot to ask for the beneficiary, it's on the bottom, you're going to know you need to ask for the banking next. It's always guiding you to make sure that the information, you always know where you're going next.
Okay.
I think new people are like, what do I ask? Oh, I'm not sure. You just go down the steps, just work your way down the worksheet and you'll know where to go with that.
And then, so you have two scripts that you've made, just so we're clear. And I consider that as part of the tools that you need, right? So there's a buffer script and a non-buffer script. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct. So sorry if my lunch is in the background. Ignore my lunch order. It's like my ring. Sorry.
So buffer and no buffer script. Okay, perfect.
Correct. And that's, we don't have to go into details about specific vendors, because the vendors, I feel there's going to be just like same thing with lead sources. It's going to constantly be changing. There's going to be new companies and new things. The most common thing is going to be, like you said, buffer versus no buffer. So the main thing to understand is where the call is being generated from. If it's a buffer situation, usually it's 2 minutes where you get to figure out if you're going to keep that call and essentially pay for it. Right.
Okay.
So the main thing that drives that conversation in that first 2 minutes, do you really want this?
Got it.
So there's 2 or 3 ways you can just ask, are you actively looking for life insurance? Do you currently have coverage in place right now? Are we trying to add on to an existing policy? Are we trying to get a specific policy for a specific reason? Don't be afraid to say life insurance, because some people, oh no, I thought this was health. Oh, I thought this was car insurance.
That's true.
You don't know where they're being generated from. So here you have to like cut to the point and figure out, is this somebody that actually is going to commit at some point, or were they looking for something for free?
So as a new agent, why would let's say I'm a new agent, why would I just not go to the buffer side of the business?
Gotcha. No, that's a great question. Mainly, it's good practice. You got to be able, because it builds confidence. You get used to talking to people in a certain manner. There's 2 or 3 vendors, not my favorite, because I know how to kind of cut to the chase, but they're really, really good with building your confidence, building your script, and getting used to answering questions that may seem a little aggressive, or dealing with people that might be a little bit aggressive. Because it's the same thing, like if we were doing buying leads for in person, you're going to do CRM because I want you to talk to 100 people because it's cheaper versus maybe 5 people for the same cost.
Got it.
And then if you make a mistake on the more expensive one, you're gonna hurt a little more. You know?
What about electronics like second monitor? Do you recommend that? Headphones and all that stuff?
Yeah, I like the headphones sometimes. I mean, myself, I'm a small person, so I like this. I have my little tablet, my little computer, and I work with the worksheets. I write everything down.
Okay.
If you have the space and you're able to navigate, it does help to have the FBX toolkit on one screen and your e-apps on the other. Okay. Definitely having your portals and easy clickable, open up, get into Mutual, get into Aetna, whatever carrier, you need to be able to do that quick.
I do not
suggest, don't do it because I don't think it works all the time. Inside the FBX toolkit, you're going to have like the carrier, the quote, and then a little button that can take you to the e-app. Right. But I don't think it goes the right way because it doesn't catch my logins. So it's like, oh shit, well, I just wasted 10 seconds. I just rather go to my drop down and hit Mutual and I'm right there. So if you want to use 2 screens and you're savvy with it, do it. For me, I just have little tabs and I do what I got to do.
Okay. So FEX toolkit, worksheet, scripts, and obviously the tools like headphones and monitors with, portals and application systems open. Anything else?
And the grid sheet. Yeah, the qualifying whether you have it printed. Yeah, but I mean, sometimes I don't have it printed. Maybe I'm working from home. I'll just have the Google Drive. It opens up just as quick. Okay. If you're not sure on who approves COPD or what about term for this age, what have you, the FDX toolkit can wean it down for you. But if you don't want to type in, because you can type in medications and conditions, I just rather look it up and see it and then make the decision of what carrier I want to use.
You need to add prosperity to those.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's prosperity.
We need to add prosperity.
Ooh, you're Mr. Robot right now.
It's been updated.
Well, my internet's messed up. Okay, I'll double check because the one that I have, it wasn't. So I'll double check. I'll get back in there.
Yeah, you might have to go into your settings and select the carrier.
There.
Yeah, because I didn't know that either. I was like, "There's nothing on here," and they're like, "Go to your settings, add the company." Hello. So.
So let's talk about the cost. Okay, what should a new agent expect to pay for live transfers? And let's be realistic, right? Because there's a high number and then there's also a low number. And the low number to me dictates how many number of calls you're going to take versus the high numbers. And that's my thought. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I would say to be able to receive the most calls, get the most bang for your buck going with one specific company. I don't know if we're saying the name or not. They match you. So when you sign on, they give you like a matching bonus. You can talk to your upline and we'll go through that together. But that one is a buffer. So you're going to get the volume. You get to choose if you're taking the call. So if you're running low and you're like, I don't know if I can take another call, or I'm not sure about this guy, you got to handle that situation and maybe call him back or something like that. But I would say realistically with that one where they match you, you could do 600 and get anywhere between 10 to 20 calls, depending on how many you take past the buffer.
Okay. So 10 to 20 calls. Okay.
Because you're going to get, let's say you start with 600, they match you. Now you're at $1,200.
10 to 20 calls per week.
Yeah, for that 1,200. So if you keep reloading it and you keep putting in 6 to 1,200 a week, we're talking about that many calls. Let's say you only take 50% of that. That of course dictates how further you go with that vendor. That one is, maybe I thought this was free, or I was just looking for a quote, or you'll get oh no, my cousin just died. We had to do a GoFundMe. I don't want that to happen to me. Okay. I want to talk to you. Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that one, but that gives you the practice of screening, right? So when you do get to the one without the buffer, you ask that question, okay, you're actively looking for life insurance. They say, yeah, absolutely. I need to get something put in place. You already got past the intent because they just spent 20 minutes getting screened by somebody else. So that cost is higher because somebody else is doing that part. And there is no buffer. You get charged when you pick it up.
Okay.
So,
So the one with the buffers, let's say you start, I'm a brand new agent, you pay 500, the company matches, I think another 500. So your starting balance is $1,000, right? With that company that has the buffer. Now you're going to take on a week's worth of time, I'd say about 20 calls. Is that fair?
Yeah, depending on when you're open, how many states you have, which is another thing we have to touch on, states.
Okay.
I would say it varies. Like if you're only open for 20 minutes, that's not going to work. If you're open for at least 3 to 5 hours over a good period of time,
sure.
I would say you'll at least get 5 to 6 calls in a good 2 to 3 hour period. Again, depending on the vendor and the states you have, that varies. But if you flip it over to the one without the buffer, that's, I would say, anywhere between $80 to $100 a call. Okay. And you get charged the second you get picked up. So you gotta go with it. Some people don't like that. I personally like it. It takes like the guessing game out of it. I've gotten used to it.
But they do a lot more screening, is from what you've told me, right? They do a lot more screening.
Correct. Yeah, because
so
when you open and you accept the call,
right,
you've got their name, date of birth, address, smoking status, height and weight, email, phone number, if they already have something, and if they maybe have like a pre-existing condition. So the time you would spend trying to get that information from the one that maybe doesn't give you all of that you have to pull it from them, you're just confirming. So you sound way more legitimate. That you sound, because you ever call into like Comcast and you have to tell them the same story that your cable went out, and you get tired of saying the same thing.
Same thing again and again. Correct.
Now it's like, okay, I see here your date of birth is 1/23/56. You're in Gallatin, Tennessee, and I know you said you were looking for a final expense. You have pre-existing condition, diabetes. I sound like I know what the hell I'm talking about.
Got it. Okay.
Versus, oh, what were you? Are you sick? Are you a smoker? Or I mean, what were you trying to do? Like, I don't know what's going on. You don't sound like you know what you're talking about.
Right. So let's just clarify. So the buffer, there is very limited amount of information captured from the vendor, right? I think it's 2 or 3 questions, maybe how much coverage you're looking for, your date of birth, and then, the sex, right? That's pretty much it. Versus the one that has no buffer, you're getting a lot more pre-qualification questions, and that information is given to you as you're taking the call. So you can say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, or Mr. Jones, I see here you're diabetic, you have this prescription you're taking, this is your date of birth. Okay. So you're already starting with valuable information from the call already, so that you can start building on the next set of questions, right?
Yeah, you're not burning time.
Okay, good. So I guess you do pay more, but it's worth it, right? Because you're doing all the legwork on the back end, and now you can just quickly go through and figure out which plan that they may or may not qualify for.
I would say on average, I spend maybe a minute or 2 explaining myself and the process. Okay. Run through basic information, date of birth, smoking status, and address, and what type of coverage we're looking for. Maybe that's another 2 to 3 minutes, maybe spending a couple minutes on term versus whole life, or they're like, I don't really know what I want. Main thing is explaining permanent for whole life, temporary for term. Those are 2 words that seem to click pretty well for people, and going through the health questions. Okay. So that, I would say by the time I'm done doing the health questions, it's been maybe 7 minutes.
Okay. All right.
It's pretty quick. So I can go into quoting, and I don't quote an exact number. I always give a range, which gives me the leeway to say we need to do an application to give you an exact quote, an exact qualification with a price. That's what I do.
Okay.
That's how I can move from, I just wanted a quote, to an application being submitted, which does mean I post date a lot, but that's just part of the process.
Sure. So what should a new agent expect in the beginning as they're getting started, their closing ratios, and how does that improve over time?
I would say if you're brand new and you got the tools and you went through, basic foundation skills of carriers, and you use the tools that we've got, i.e. mainly the Google Drive. So, the health conditions, because e-apps are not that hard. Just read the site, go down the tabs. That's easy. If you take an extra 30 seconds to read questions to make sure you're not making a mistake, that's fine. You'll get better with that. That's how you learn. I would say closing ratio with the person that has intent. We're not talking about giving vendors. I would say you probably be like around a 60 to 70%. because
Okay.
you're talking to somebody that requested it, just like it was in the home. It's
Right.
just in a different platform. I would say you're looking at probably, 60 to 70%, as long as you're talking to people, as long as you're open,
Sure.
at least I would say 3 to 5 hours a day, a couple days a week. Because I do
Okay.
about that 4 or 5 days a week. And I'm still talking to people every day. I'm
Okay.
feeding the machine. Once you get into it and you get into the higher intent, you get into your confidence level, your carriers, I would say you're going to move up probably quickly within 2 weeks, 80 to 90%. And the only
Okay.
variable is the intent and the people that you're talking to.
Got it. Awesome. Good numbers. Okay.
Mhm,
So
absolutely.
then the next step, once an agent has all these things ready, they are obviously defining their schedule with the vendors, right? So they're going to let the vendors know that, hey, Christina, I can only work Mondays and Thursdays, or I can only work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this amount of time. So does the vendor allocate the calls based on the schedule that you provide?
Yes. So that's going to go into states. So, and I do have to run at 1 to do an interview.
Yep.
So we'll just
We're gonna
finish
wrap
up with
this
that.
up. Yep.
Yeah. So I would say the vendors on average have a dashboard, and you can set your schedule and you have a pause button.
Okay.
So like, for example, I paused. I'm going to be hitting a couple things. I'll probably reopen today from 3 to 4, just so I'm open for an extra hour.
Sure.
But I can just literally set my schedule, hit open, hit close, and I'm good. You can decide if you want to take calls on Saturdays. There's a few vendors that take calls on Saturdays. To be honest, I do a lot of my follow-up on Saturdays because nobody's working. So, because sometimes I'm mostly open in the mornings due to my schedule. So I get people calling on their lunch break. I can't do it right now. I don't have all my information. Can we do an appointment when I'm off on Saturday? So I fill up my Saturday with follow-up. And I do a lot of, I'm going to send you a text. I'm going to send you a confirmation. I'm going to send you my information. Here's my license. I have all of that information stored as part of my workflow for follow-up, because they weren't going to be able to commit in that moment because they're on their 20-minute lunch break, and they probably don't have their banking. They probably don't want to do it in a hurry. They don't know where they're at. That's fine. I get it. It's just like a one layer. You got to move it into the weekend. So I do that as part of my natural workflow. As far as follow-up, somebody always says, I'm at work, try to catch them on a Saturday.
Got it. Okay.
And also you have to think about what states you're taking. I have 25 states, primarily central to East Coast, because I can only really work in the mornings. If you can't work in the morning, you might want to get the other coast, because California is a pretty big state.
Sure.
You can open at 3 o'clock. That's a big time difference. They might be more there. You might be getting more calls from that side of the US.
That's a good point. Very good point. Yeah.
So because you're going to be on this side, maybe open till 9 o'clock, but it's not 9 o'clock over there.
Yeah.
The calls will still be coming, but I can't do that state because I'll miss it every time. It doesn't make sense for me to get it because I'm closed by the time every day, right between 2 and 3 p.m. That's like, they're just waking up.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So the name of the game really with life transfers, I have found, is states. Get as
so 15 plus states, is that a good number to start with? 15 states or higher?
You can start honestly with 10, because you can still write business. You can still submit an application and then apply for the license after you submit it. Really, there's only 2 carriers that don't really let you do that. And if that happens, you say, okay, let me go ahead. I'm going to start processing your application. I'm going to put you in the system for follow-up. I'm going to have to do like a signature authorization in about a day because their server's down. So I'm going to have to finish the application with you tomorrow. Go into NIPR, get your license started, boom. Then you can go ahead and submit the app because you started the application process with the state.
Awesome.
There's ways to go around it, but the more states you have, because think of it this way, and Chris, I'm going to use it as an example, not because you're the only other one on here. Let's say you only had 5 states and I got 25. I might not jump you in line for Georgia per se, because your bid is higher and you've been open longer, but I'll get Oklahoma before you because you don't have Oklahoma.
Makes sense. Okay. Sounds good.
And some of the vendors do a bidding system where whoever has the highest bid gets the call.
Yeah,
so if I don't want to pay more, I'm just going to get more states.
Awesome. So last question, we got 2 minutes left, and I want to wrap this up real quick. So if somebody needs information on the scripts, they can go to the Google Share Drive. Is that correct?
Yes, there's 2 folders in there. One of them has a vendor name that has more specific information for a non-buffer vendor. That's the one where you pick up the call, you get charged. If you just need live transfer training with the buffer, that's the live transfer folder. And the scripts are very similar. You'll see them on there. The worksheet is exactly the same. It might even have the FEX toolkit link in there. This is all information that any upline will share with you, but it's a good thing to just dive in, check it out, play with it, look at the grid sheets, start getting comfortable with conditions, and the workflow. A few of the carriers do let you do a demo. That's really great. You can just go in and play with the e-apps just so you kind of know where you're at. Start bookmarking all your e-apps and your portals so you can jump in pretty quickly. That's the worst thing, where you never set up Mutual of Omaha and you're like quoting them Mutual of Omaha, and then you're like, oh shit, I can't get in. Like,
right.
Just being prepared on that.
So I've recorded this. I'm going to upload it in the shared drive for anybody else. I know we've done this quite a few times, but it's always good to get a refresher. So I need some help with that, but I appreciate your time. I'll let you go. Absolutely. And then for our Nini agents, we can just share this video so they can get started as well too. Okay? Absolutely. Yep. And maybe we'll do it volume 2 next week. All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Perfect. Thanks.